Okay, recording started. So, welcome back everyone to the episode 7. So, let me just know if it is not the episode 7 because we are doing this from a long time. I know there was some gaps, but then yeah, so I think this is episode 7, so let's get started. In the last week's session, we have talked about some interesting things, something which is very related to India, but then we'll talk more about Ethereum today. But of course, before that, we have some awesome news. So Pranav is all set this week. Of course, we are not going live on Wednesday, but we'll be uploading this video on Friday. Hope so. This will be on Friday. So Pranav, how was your week?
Hey, all
Good.
good. Totally pumped up. Like all the positive newses that have come. I always, try to begin every session with the news. And the reason behind that is always when you are believing something in conviction, right, with a lot of conviction, and there are certain kind of positive points that lead you to even believe more, you should always share them and, be happy about it. And I always believe a Web3 project is never company driven. It is always community driven, right? So as
Right.
you and me, Naveen, you and me are building the Web3 community in India, and we share these kind of newses and these kind of positive information, the community gets larger and larger, and we, become happier and happier about the good things that are happening in the new development, and we being a part of it in whatever way possible. So, like, it's like we building the next internet and being a very, 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 very small part of it, but doing, of course, our bit to make it happen so that in future we can all be the WGMIs, the we are gonna make it gang, and
Oh,
make the next ownership based internet. So I'm really super pumped
right.
up. Had an awesome week. As I told you, I never look at the price charts or whatever because they don't reflect as to what Web3 is all about and things like that, right?
Right. So we are
It's
focusing more on technology than on the currencies part of it.
right. It's always you have my path, my personal journey has always been first I started off as a blockchain developer, right? And I skilled through that for 2 years. I had no currencies. Like I was in 2017 into blockchain development, developing Ethereum and things like that. And the first currency I got was a consultation fees. Just imagine.
Oh,
So I've
oh,
been more into development as a developer than into the crypto speculative markets, and that what brings my conviction even more to this particular space. So if you are fundamentally driven and understand the core crux and have investment based out of convictions, you will all do great. So these kind of like knowledgeable session, I think will help you to have more conviction, be happy as a community, and grow the Ethereum as grow Web3, grow Ethereum, grow the blockchain ecosystem as we move along in the Indian ecosystem.
awesome. So you mentioned about some news, right, Pranav? So we can
Right.
start with the news. In fact, I was going through some articles after this session, and then yeah, there was a lot of confusion still, with the currency market. But yeah, we can
Right.
get started with the news. So what are the news you're
So the
talking
first
about, Pranav?
one, and really a big bumper news that has come out like just 2 or 3 days back, is that Polygon has raised $450 million,
Oh
led by
yes.
Sequoia Capital and SoftBank. Just imagine a company started by Indian co-founders, worked in Mumbai, then went to Bangalore as a developer ecosystem. Now has its reach globally and is said to be what we call as the business development unit of Ethereum, as well as the load balancer to get Ethereum and to scale Ethereum in a way like we discussed, right? Ethereum will be the finality layer and there'll be execution layer, and
Yeah.
Polygon is trying to be that awesome execution layer. The company, the core developer ecosystem, back in 2018, started in India by Indian co-founders, is now doing wonders with a $450 million raise. Like I think this is. I'm not sure because I don't follow that much Web2, but this is one of the highest raises that Indian co-founders have been able to make it through. And it's not like any like all these sheikhs of Dubai or somebody has invested in it. It's rather Sequoia
Yeah.
Capital, SoftBank, all these OGs, if they are believing in Polygon, if they are believing in the Indian ecosystem, if they are believing in the Web3 ecosystem, then I think there is definitely some core crux to making things work and happen. So a really big news, a really awesome, I can say there was this always this saying, when back in maybe Naveen, you were also in this developer market and I was also there, that it's always SF making products and India giving services for that. And now the
Right.
ecosystem is changing and Polygon is at the core crux of making that change. with Indians making the product and hiring people from SF and related places to, give the services to make it happen. So this is the time for India. This is the time for Web3. Let's make it big. So really happy for the Polygon ecosystem, guys. Really happy for the Web3 ecosystem in India. Really, really great and big news.
Yeah, in fact, when I read that news for the first time, you were the first person which came to my mind because you are the ex Polygon, right? So I thought,
Yeah, yeah,
I just
yeah.
wanted to know what will be your reaction.
And I don't want to be very emotional, but there was a time when it was like, it was tough for a company coming out of India, that is Matic Network, and having that kind of like background to raise even 1 or 2 crore rupees, right? And now they have raised like what 3,500 crore rupees or whatnot. At that time, it was
Oh,
so tough because, like, there was this stigma among VC investors that Indian ecosystem, oh, they are service based, might be scammy and things like that. All this
yeah,
is changing with the Web3 ecosystem. I'm so really happy. Like, if you do the right things, right, it doesn't matter your location. There are people who are like, oh, my location is India and everything is happening in US. You are just lying to yourself. The innovation is happening on internet and it is happening on metaverse, which is not location based. It is happening on the internet. All you have to be is a part of a DAO. You can be anywhere in the internet. All you have to do is contribute the right amount with the right ethics and in the right fundamental knowledge. So really happy. I mean, I know this is definitely a little emotional for me as well. So I'm
yeah.
super happy for the co-founders as well who have made this happen and making the change. This is the new India making things work for us.
Right. Awesome. So let's move to the next news.
The second, and again, amazing news. India has had some of its preservations in crypto. The bill is not yet out, right? But there are certain like things that have been talked about in the budget and things like that. Naveen and I discussed in the previous episode. Maybe Naveen can give the links to that if you want to read about it. But after that particular thing, right, there was a talk that Russia might also regulate it. It might, like, push for cryptocurrencies to not be available. And first thing, as I told you, as a economy, as a country with a great economy, you don't want intrusion from other people to have these currencies coming in and making global stuff and things like that. There are always reservations by the central banks of these companies, including India. RBI was not very, very friendly, but again, a great news coming out of Russia, right? The Russian government and the Russian central bank have recognized the importance of cryptocurrencies, right? They understand it's like, it's need to make a country, like, progress. For example, it's like back in 2000s there were some people who were like, okay, in this nation we'll not have internet because it is disrupting our local businesses. It's like, saying that kind of a thing. That's what, like, Vladimir Putin has also stated that, see, Russia has the best natural gas, Russia has the best use case. What we should do is utilize this in the Bitcoin mining ecosystem and make things work. If we have something which is of, like, great importance and is globally accepted, we should not be the ones lagging behind, right? It's the same as I told you. In 2000s, there were some countries who were like, okay, internet might disrupt our economy, so let's not use it. It's imperishable. It has to have happen there, right? It's just that if you don't accept it, you will be left behind, right? As I told you as well. So Russia has understood that particular aspect, and now they are introducing a bill in which they will recognize cryptocurrencies as currencies. And the bill is like, I don't want to go into the law and related aspect because, of course, that's not our technical, that's not our expertise. But they are also very progressively thinking about Bitcoin, and the miner ecosystem, as well as cryptocurrencies as an exchange thing as well. And making some kind of, like, what we can say is, like, for example, if you want to open an exchange, you will have to take a license in Russia, open it, and if the transaction is above $8,000, then you might have to, like, show that to the government for taxations and everything. But in general, cryptocurrencies, it's not like they're putting a straight ban. It's rather they are accepting the power of crypto and what it can do for Russia, right? So really, really pumped up over there as well. The third news, and again, an important but like a little hilarious news, is that US government now holds Bitcoin, right? It's based out of a hack, but now the US government holds Bitcoin. So Bitfinex got hacked back in like 2016 or something like that. I don't remember the exact dates. At that time, it was a hack of 120K or something like that. Now the value is too much, and that is now worth something like $2.4 billion. And the US government caught that particular fraudulent Bitcoin, caught those people who had this Bitcoin, and now that Bitcoin is in their reach, right? Just imagine $2.4 billion. Will they now not accept Bitcoin? I would say no, that's not a possibility. They will utilize it. They are a capitalistic oriented economy. They will always make use of it. Also, there is some good talks going on in the US corridors about the stable coins and related aspects. So really pumped up over there as well. So all, like you can say, like, all the superpowers eventually coming up out there expressing their interest in Web3 is what is the current state of, like, our particular world. So it's like great news from India, Polygon, great news from Russia with the government, great news from US. It's all happening, man. It's like the Lego block eventually joining to see the puzzle
Yeah,
as a bigger picture. So really
right.
happy.
And they're all coming together. That's important.
Right, right.
Great.
Anyways, on that happy note, let's just recap as to what we discussed last to last episode. Right, we were discussing the ETH 2.0 roadmap and things that have happened there, and then what we'll be discussing today is the EIP 1559, which is like Ethereum improvement proposal, which has changed a lot of things. There are a lot of there are a lot of wrong things about it, as in like people think that it is something, but there are a lot of misconceptions about EIP 1559, and we would like to clear that in this particular session. Why this particular session? So I hope you are very well pumped up, and let's get started with it. The first, just a recap of what E 2.0 is doing. So it is based out of phases, right? There is a phase 0, then the phase 1, then a phase 2, then a phase 3, and a 4. So the phase 1 is the beacon chain launch. Beacon chain is the chain which will have proof of stake as the consensus. The current Ethereum stake is proof of work. So phase 0 will have beacon chain, which has proof of stake with a number of validators to be launched. Then phase 0 is already complete. If you want to check, you can go to beacon scan and check the blockchain running. Right now, it's not something. For example, if you do a transaction on Ethereum, it will happen on proof of work chain, not a beacon chain. But eventually, with phase 1, the proof of work and proof of stake will merge. What that means is that with phase 1 that is coming along now, we'll have proof of work uh, as a proof of stake, I mean, sorry, as the chain which is running everything. What that means is that after the phase 1, which is gonna be complete like tentatively in July or something like that, is that after July, if you do a transaction on Ethereum, it will be happening on the beacon chain, which is the proof of stake consensus algorithm, right? So that's the second thing. The third phase after that is the sharding phase, right? The sharding phase will increase the data availability in a particular ecosystem, and I'm super happy that sharding is now coming along eventually. Although it's still like 2 to 3 years until sharding in the decentralized database happens, but yeah, the current sharding that will be happening will be of 64 shards, and it will not support execution. So for Ethereum scaling, we would require something like a Polygon ZK words that they are developing, and this data availability of with the sharding of Ethereum and the Ethereum state proofs as well on the layer 1 side. So this is phase 2 that is also going along. Then the phase 3 is docking, right? Docking is like Ethereum current chain is added to as a shard to the Beacon POS ecosystem, right? So it's like one of the shards in the 64 shards, right? So one of the shards will be a part of, so sharding will be 64 chains, right? Eventually running together, and one of these chains will be the current chain that we have in Ethereum, right? So it will scale by 64x and things like that. That's docking, that's phase 3. And the last phase is that either we will also include sharding either we will also include execution in sharding, or we will apply the roll-up based execution model for scaling Ethereum eventually, so that we can make Ethereum the internet of Web3, right? So that's the recap. Phase one, launching of the beacon chain. Phase two, proof of work, proof of stake, a merge. Phase three, sharding. Phase four, docking, and phase five, execution, and eventually Ethereum becoming, and these kind of blockchains becoming the economy of the internet or the new internet itself. Naveen,
Awesome. That
will
was a
you
quick recap. I was able to recall all the things.
will you welcome the new internet, or will you be happy with the previous one itself?
Of course, of course. From last 3 years, I'm waiting for the new internet, and the way it is going now with the obstacles, I feel obstacles are important because that's where you add some new features and you think out of the box. What else we can do so that everyone will adopt it, even the government or corporate or everyone. Because I remember when I started looking at blockchain, it was mostly public blockchain, and there was some level of resilience from the corporates as well because they don't wanted to move towards blockchain because the data was public. So of course everyone have a different use case, right? Some people want to use the public blockchain, some people want privacy. So in that terms, when you have obstacles, they find new solutions. And maybe using Ethereum also we can create private blockchains now. So of course I feel obstacles are important. That's where you think out of the
Right.
box and you come up with new ideas, and you make a solution which will be for everyone, not just for specific people but for everyone in general, right? So
Right,
yeah, so
definitely.
I always welcome obstacles.
I also believe in that, and it's always like, when you're trying to make a change, if you're, for example, if you're trying to do that 10-minute deliveries thing that's happening right now, and like, everybody's crazy about it, like, oh, 10-minute delivery. So it's like, it's a smaller obstacle, right? It's like
Yeah,
changing the delivery ecosystem. It's like, uh, it's like, see the impact. It's like creating, instead of getting the delivery of goods in 30 minutes, people will be getting in 10 minutes. So the impact is 20 minutes, and that too just for delivery, right? And
yeah,
what the Web3 ecosystem is doing now is rather changing the way people will communicate in the future, right? It's like changing how internet works, changing how the ownership model of internet works. The impact theory, the impact model is harder and harder, and that's how it is. If there are no obstacles, then your impact is very, very less. If you have obstacles, there are things that have to be taken considered, then it is going to impact 100 more people. So obstacles are great, and I also like,
right.
totally resound with your particular thing. And I totally now with the Lego blocks, as back in 2017 when you also started teaching the Ethereum blockchain and things like that. I hope you
Yeah,
can also like now see that, okay, things are more moving in the public blockchain space. Many applications are being developed. People are doing regular transactions and things like that. And eventually we can see that kind of a future. Although a lot of things still need to be built, but that's where the
right.
opportunity lies.
Right, true. So the new updates which you're talking about, EIP, the Ethereum 2.0,
155.
and then we got so many phases, right? So one number, I mean, the one request or one proposal, which is 1559, which looks very important,
Right.
apart from all the other proposals. So let's focus on that now. So
Right,
what exactly
definitely.
this EIP 1559 is?
I'm myself like very, very like, very, very excited to share this kind of like Ethereum improvement proposal. So normally how Ethereum works is not like, like a corporate structure. It's not like, okay, people, there is a board which sits and they take the decision, like in YouTube. People
Yeah,
sit, they take the decision, and all the YouTubers and the community has just to follow that, right? It's not like that. It's rather a governance mechanism. So it's like you post on the forum that, okay, this is my proposal and this is what I think can make a change and things like that, and everybody in the community votes on it whether it is correct or wrong. And that's what is the difference. So it's like everybody is like, whatever proposal that comes up, right, it has to have net neutrality of every participant in the ecosystem. It has to have the consensus of the miners who are a part of the Ethereum ecosystem. It has to have the consensus of developers who are a part of the ecosystem. It has to have the consensus of stakers who are a part of the Ethereum ecosystem, and also of the core devs who and their like philosophy and vision and things like that. It's not like, okay, YouTube, there is a meeting today and we meet, and all people, whatever like decisions are taken are just in favor of the people who have built YouTube, which is just Google, not the people who are developing content on YouTube. So first of all, it's a very powerful mechanism of governance, right? It's not one side facing. It's not like, one particular, okay, only Google will get the most benefit out of this particular thing. It's rather, it has to be very net neutral in terms of community. And this one proposal, which is very famous and has got a lot of name, is the EIP 1559 proposal. I'm really excited to share more about it. Even like Naveen can see me jumping out of the chair that I'm sitting on for this.
Yeah. In fact, offline when we were talking about this Web3 show, we came up with this topic from a long time, and then every week the topic was getting postponed. I was like, okay, this will be a week when we'll be talking about the new proposal.
Right.
So
So
here we go.
it's finally here, right? So
Yeah.
I'll just explain you in brief as to what currently the structure is, and then how EIP 1559 is changing it, right? It's very technical. So it might require a little extra. So I would always request you to watch this video in 1x, right? And in a little not a very noisy environment, because all the things are related. All right. So currently what happens is that if you are like trying to do a transaction on Ethereum, like before EIP 159, okay, we are currently discussing before EIP 1559. So before EIP 1559, if you were trying to do a transaction, what would happen is there is a mempool that is created, right? So all these transactions on Ethereum first go on mempool, right? And out of the mempool, the miners who are gonna like take those transactions and include it in the block are gonna take it and include that in the block. And the people in the transaction who have paid the most transaction fees are the ones which are gonna be selected first. Why? Because the miners are gonna get most amount of incentives out of it. Okay. So let me just share my Google Jamboard to explain you what I have told in a more visual sense. So I'll just share my board. All right. So I was explaining how the transactions work. So first of all, what happens is there is this, okay, you do a transaction, TRX1, right? You do TRX1, and that instead of getting added to the Ethereum blockchain that exists, Ethereum blockchain, like there is this blockchain that exists. First of all, it comes into the mempool, right? And there are miners who are gonna pick the transaction up and put it inside the blockchain. Okay. So this is TRX1, there is TRX2, there is TRX3, and right. So what happens is that there is these transactions, and every transaction has a TRX fees included in that. Okay. So the miners will be choosing the transaction which has the most amount of fees in it, because the more the fees in the transaction, right, the more they will be getting reward to include that in the blockchain, right? What that means is that it's like a random system that, okay, you think that right now the transaction fees or in the mempool is like 100 GUI, right? And then it's like, okay, you just pay 120 GUI because you want to have be a priority customer, right? But it was like you could have done the same kind of transaction in just 60 GUI, right? So you have just wasted 60 GUI. It's like just bidding process. You're just like speculating that right now I want to get this transaction through in the Ethereum ecosystem in just a second. What I'll do is pay the highest gas fees that I can, and the people who get incentives out of it is just miners. And this is not a correct UX. It's like you want to do a transaction, what you do is you give the highest fees and then make it happen. But there might be like lower people who are just paying just 60 GUI. Like let's say somebody's paying just $60 and somebody's paying $150 for the same transaction, and it takes the same amount of time and things like that, because this guy didn't knew that, okay, in the current mempool there are about people who have paid 60 or less dollars. My transaction will get included even in $61, right? That's like you just bidding that, okay, I'll just go for 150 because I think that's a safe number. Also, on the hinge side, there is a chance that somebody has paid, okay, for example, $70, and he thinks that, okay, the people in the transaction mempool are mostly 60 or things like that. But eventually an NFT drop happens and everybody wants to buy it, right? And eventually the transactions in this particular mempool rise because everybody wants to have a snuck of it, pay 150, 160, like things like that. So this guy who has paid $70 has to wait for a very long time for his transaction to be included in the blockchain, because just in a matter of fraction of seconds, the value of this particular transaction, the value of this gas fees has increased from $60 to like average $60 to 150 $150. And the guy who has paid $70 might have to wait. His transaction might get reverted. His very important transaction might be like, not working, and he might get liquidated and things like that. So this kind of like uncertainty based gas ecosystem existed in Ethereum, bidding based. Who are the ones who are getting most profit out of it? The miners, right? Because it's like, okay, if your transaction is important, irrespective of the fact that whatever the gas fees currently exist, just pay us the highest amount, and your transaction will be included to be on the safe side. And what is the highest? There is no upper limit. You can pay $1,000, you can pay $100. It's like, so that was the first point and biggest issue. The second was you have to bid. There is like, you have to bid. There is no certainty. Just keep bidding to check whether your transaction can be included or not. Third was there is a chance of reversal, right? There is a chance that your particular transaction would get reverted. Why? Because just in a fraction of seconds, the value of the gas got increased and you paid less amount, so your transaction could not be included for a very long time, and now your transaction got reverted, which is again a UI that you would not want to have. So these were the problems that existed in the in Ethereum before EIP 1559. What EIP 1559 does is that, okay, so is this part clear before we jump on to what are the advantages of having EIP 1559? So as of now, these are the problems that exist in the current Ethereum ecosystem.
Yeah, it's clear.
These are the problems that exist. Now we will be moving towards what EIP 1559 as an advantageous thing does. First of all, like, we have understood the issues that exist before EIP 1559 and what has happened after EIP 1559 with this whole gas situation and, people overpaying and things like that, is that after EIP 1559, this UX of doing a particular transaction has improved. We'll see how, but right now just understand. It's like with now after EIP 1559, the UX of doing a particular transaction on Ethereum has improved. It's like you don't have to bid that, you don't have to predict that, I have to pay $150 or whatnot. There is a system in place which gives you that this is the minimum amount that you have to pay. You can pay a tip or whatnot, but this is the minimum and things like that. This is the first thing. Secondly, there is a reduced or like, close to very, very less number of transactions which get reverted. As I told you before, there was a time when, you pay with $70 and eventually this gas cost skyrocketed and your transaction cannot be added. But now with this new system in place with EIP 1559, the reverting of the transaction because of the solving the uncertainty problem has also reduced. So revert of transaction has also reduced. That's the second part. Third, you can predict what the transaction fees that currently exist in the Ethereum ecosystem. You can predict that, okay, right now in Ethereum it might be $60. You can predict right now, and you pay accordingly, like just $60 or $61 if you want to be a little more tippy and things like that, right? So you can predict the transaction that you want to do. And the fourth one is that with this new ecosystem, with this new whole thing in place, there is this option of Ethereum being deflationary. How, again, we'll understand. But for now, this is something that, is something that the Ethereum ecosystem is dancing about. Everybody in Bitcoin is like, oh, Bitcoin will be only 21 million. And we are a deflationary token. We are a deflationary asset. And you need to buy us. We are equivalent to gold. But now Ethereum is also a value accrual ecosystem. Why? Because with this EIP 1559 and the gas ecosystem in place, instead of all the incentives going to miners, it would rather be going to the people. How? By making Ethereum deflationary. Again, how? We will see that, how this process works. But these are the top 4 or 5 benefits for EIP 1559, which are huge. It's a UI improvement and not a gas improvement. What people think, like there is a dilemma that with EIP 1559, it's like you don't have to pay any gas. You are like, it's like it's a gas reduction proposal. Dude, it's not like that. Ethereum cannot scale without sharding or using optimistic layer 2 based rollups. Things are in place there. No gas reduction as a thing. Okay, first of all, it just be clear with that. It's rather a UX improvement than gas, or that kind of improvement. Okay, so as I told you, the advantages are all based out of UX plus this value accrual ecosystem. Whoever is holding Ethereum is very happy about it and things like that. Why? Deflationary token. Other than that, it's just a UX improvement, and the Ethereum community has just done it for the UX improvement, right? Just imagine you bidding for a particular transaction to be included versus you making an informed choice. What would you choose, Naveen? Are you a bidder or
Of
an
course, the
informed?
informed choice.
Right. So that's a major improvement in the Ethereum ecosystem. And how does it work is what we'll be seeing
Yeah.
now.
So just when you mentioned about people who hold Ethereum, I was just thinking, do I have any Ethereum in my wallet?
Always, guys, we'll actually, there is this many people who currently have just got into Ethereum and they are doing transactions via MetaMask, right? And they make some money and their MetaMask gets hacked. So security right now, because tooling is a little rough around the edges and there are 100 hackers who can take advantage who have been before in the ecosystem, we would want to discuss the security of using these kind of tools. And as
Yeah.
a person who is new into the ecosystem, things that you should be aware of, we should do this particular thing one day. So yeah, very very important. But yeah, don't use MetaMask for very big transactions, just a caution.
Right.
Right. Anyways, moving forward to how Ethereum works, right? The EIP 1559 works. So again, my very technical support and trying to make you understand how EIP 1559 works. Okay. Right. So currently you can say this is the block size, right? This is the block size of a transaction that has to be included, right? A blockchain is just blocks connected and everybody running these blocks. I'm not explaining you the basics, but if you want, this is how the blockchain works, right? So before EIP 159, every block was of the same size. Whether the whether it's whether the transactions are very heavy or the transactions are very light, all the blocks were of the same size. With inclusion of EIP 1559, with more blocks, with more transactions, more heaviness in transactions in the network, the block size increases, right? If it's very trafficy on the network, the block size increases. Then again, if it's trafficy, the block size even increases further, right? And the block size is very directly proportional to the base fees. Okay, the transaction fees includes the base fees and the tipping fees. Okay, just understand that tipping fees. Oh, my writing is really worst, but I can say the transaction with EIP 159, the transaction fees that you're paying to include your transaction in the Ethereum ecosystem is base fees plus the tipping fees. Okay, base fees is decided as per the block size. Initial, let's say, block size is 12.5 million GUI. Okay, so these 12.5 million, like half of it is normally full, 50% is full. If more than 50% is full, the base fees increases, right? And the block size also increases to accommodate for that, right? So let's just say that the base fees is like 12.5 million for every particular block. Then there is an increment, an NFT drop launches or something like that, and the transactions are heavily happening on the Ethereum ecosystem. What will happen is that the block size will increase, right? Which means that more transactions can be accommodated in this particular network. Okay, more transactions can be accommodated, but because the block size increases, it's tough for a miner to run this particular block. So the base fees also increases. Okay, the base fees for adding the transaction fees, base fees per tipping fees, right? The base fees also increases, right? Then again, there is a very huge, let's say, dump or something happening in the market and everybody don't wants to be liquidated. Again, lot of transactions happening. What will happen? Again, 2x the size of your particular 2x the size of the block that has to be included in the blockchain, and the base fees again increases, right? So the base fees increases as transactions are including. Then again, what happens is that then everything is at rest, right? Everybody is like peace. What will happen is that there'll be a improvement in the block size, right? It will try to revert here and then again try to come back to 12.5 million, which is the base, which is trying to reach here, right? The base fees with going back with transactions decreasing in the network in total will also decrease. So this is the first thing, right? Transaction is base fees plus tipping fees. The base fees will first of all improve, and the second thing is the tipping fees. That tipping fees is like, this base fees is everybody on the network has to pay this base fees, right? It's like, if you want to be a part of, want to be included at this timestamp in your particular network, you have to pay this amount. But if you want to be included at priority in this particular block, you have to pay the tipping fees as well, right? It's like a little rishwat, or like, I'm not getting the English word for rishwat, but the bribe, right? You're paying a small bribe to the network to be included in your transaction, to be included in the blockchain, right? Maybe because your transaction was very important and things like that. So I hope you have understood transaction. Just recap. Transaction includes base fees plus tipping fees, right? Base fees is what everybody in doing a particular transaction at a particular timestamp has to pay, which makes the blockchain, which makes the transaction of the network predictable, right? Like, you have to pay $50, guys, at this time right now, within 5 or 6 seconds. If you want to have your transaction included, you have to pay 50 gue at least, right? So it's like, at least you have to pay $50 to include your transaction in the blockchain. But if your transaction is very, like, very important, and you want it to be included in milliseconds, you pay a small tipping fees. Okay, so it's like, in the network now, it's predictable that if I want to have my transaction included, I pay this amount. If I want to have it included in a more faster way, I pay the tipping fees as well. Now, the most important thing, and you and Naveen might also have the same question: how does this make Ethereum deflationary? Simple answer: before before EIP 1559, right? We'll just say before, right, and make it after. Before EIP 1559, what used to happen? The transaction fees used to go to the miner. Okay, full transaction fees used to go to the miner. But now what has happened, that the transaction fees is base fees plus the tipping fees. Okay, the base fees is burned, and the tipping fees is what is going to the miner. Isn't it magical? So it's like, if the network is doing more transactions, more Ethereum gets burned. If more Ethereum gets burned, the more the better, right? The more Ethereum gets burned, the more deflationary that particular asset becomes, right? And it's not like very, like, static, that it will increase or decrease based on this. It's rather that more the deflationary, more the transactions, the more the deflationary the network, because it is doing more value accrual, and the miners are only getting the tipping fees, right? So that's how EIP 1559 works. Naveen, what do you think?
Yeah, it's clear. It's much
Like,
clear. I'm
this
just
is
happy with the term, which is deflationary. The price will go up. Again, I checked my wallet and I don't have a bit Ethereum as of now. It's time to buy.
again, don't FOMO, no investment advice at all. But I'm just like, we are explaining, like, how technically things work and
Yeah,
things
that's
like that.
important. Okay, disclaimer. This is not financial advice. Okay, we are not financial experts. We're just trying to guess what is going to happen. Okay, and the technology behind it.
Right. So now let's do a transaction which is before EIP 1599, EIP one before and after. Okay. So before, what used to happen? It's like just it's a block, it's a block, it's a block. Okay, I want to include my transaction. What I do? I just think that, okay, a magical number, $70. I just pay $70, right? And let's say at this timestamp, my transaction could have been included in $30. I wasted $40 of my, money to include my transaction in this particular block, right? But eventually the transaction fees increases, right? And now somebody else just looks at this, that he's able to pay in 70, I will pay, and he is wasting money, I'll just pay 60. Okay, and because of the just a spike in the in the gas price, everybody now has to pay 100, right? So his 60 will not be included, and his transaction will get reverted. So what were the two problems? He has paid an extra amount, right? He has paid an extra amount, and this guy is getting reverted because of being a little more conservative. Why? Because they could not predict the price of doing a particular transaction on Ethereum. After EIP 1559, what has happened is, let's say this is a block, then there is a big NFT drop, right? And then again, there is a bigger like thing happening in the market. So the base fee is already defined by network right now. Here is like, let's say $30. Okay, everybody wants to be included has to pay 30. There are two people. One guy who wants to just include his transaction, he pays 30. There is another guy who is a little like, VIP kind of person. He wants to have included on the first go. So he pays $32, right? What will happen is this will all go. So both of these transactions will go and reside inside. Now, because of the big inflation, it's like $60. Everybody has to pay $60. Again, two people come, both of them at least have to pay $60. One might have to pay more than that. But the good part is here, everything, the $60, the $70 were all going to the miner. Here, the $30 is going to is burning in the network, burned, right? The last $2 is going to the miner, right? He also pays, let's say, $1 extra is going to the miner. Rest 60 plus 60 plus 30 plus 30 is all burned, right? That's how EIP 1559 works. Such a magical number, such awesome thing. I think this is a UX improvement, but because now in the wallet, it's like you don't have to predict, you don't have to write a manual number that, I want to include my transaction by giving this amount of fees. What I do is, I just like, do the transaction and wallet takes care of it based on the base fees. If you want to give a tipping fees, you just mention it. Otherwise, wallet is like very much UX friendly. They see the base fees and include a transaction according to that. That's how EIP 1559 works. What do you think? Is it a revolution? Again, Ethereum is the internet in making, right? There are lots and lots of awesome UX changes that we'll be doing and, making the improvement to eventually be there, right? But we have to start somewhere. And I think this is a good start that the community has taken, right?
Yeah, maybe much needed feature.
Right. So I'll just show you a small visual of what we just discussed, and this is based out of like there is a very famous like YouTuber known as Anthony, very famous Ethereum community person known as Anthony Susano, who has made this. So like before EIP 1559 and after EIP 1559, right? So this is what it is, right? You pay 20, you pay 100. It's like sudden increase in the block size, but the block size remains the same. Here the block size increase, and most of the money is going to the network back by being burned, and just the tipping fees is going to the miners, right? And also there is very less reversals happening in the ecosystem. So this is how the ecosystem works, right? Also, if somebody, like for example, just pays an extra amount, like the base fees was $30 and the max tipping fees like was $10 or something like that, and he pays $70, 40 plus 10, the 30 plus 10, 40 will be taken by the network, and the rest money that he has paid as an extra will be returned back to him, right? You see another one of these like one of these things. See, rest of the money is again given back to the ecosystem, right? That okay, we don't require it. See, the base fees and the tipping fees is taken, the rest of the money is refunded back, right? Which is how you will not have to speculate and overpay for something which already exists in the ecosystem. So I hope you understood this and you are also like really like pumped up about this particular feature, and you were able to understand EIP 1559 nicely.
So finally, it's clear.
Again, many people as like Naveen are very like happy about the burn feature, right? And I'm also very happy. And there are a few like you can say websites which also show that how much Ethereum was burned every day for doing like EIP 1559 the improvement proposal was included in the London fork, right? It was a hard fork that had to be done by the network. It was included in the London fork. Everybody accepted it with open arms. Of course, it's a better thing. So, everybody was like, yeah, let's do it. Just the miners were a little unhappy. I understand that. But rest of the community was happy and it was included. And now see.
Yeah, in fact, I wanted to know that how they are reacting, the miners, because of this improvements.
Right. They are a little taken aback, right? Now it's like there is a thing known as MEV, super technical, concept. I would want to discuss this someday, but I want the community that we are having at Telusko in Ethereum to reach that level before I discuss MEV, right? So MEV was a big problem that existed before this particular thing, right? And it was like front running, like people could front run and get things done, right? And get things done before other people, and they were actually cheating the other people, right? The front running cost was really heavy and high, and now because of the EIP 1559, there is a big thing that is existing right now. And right now in the Ethereum ecosystem, everybody is working on this MEV problem, right? So there still is a thing known as MEV that we have to solve for having this Ethereum, happening in a nice sense and things like that. But right now it's super bullish. Yes, definitely. The miners are taken a little aback because before they were paying so much transaction fees and things like that, they were paid, and now it's like, but a miner not just earns by transaction fees, but also earns by the inflation rewards. So in a way, they are benefited only, right? Because they're getting paid by the inflation rewards, and now it's like Ethereum is getting burned. So becoming deflationary, ultrasound asset, and things like that. And super super pumped. So see, this is how So we just see today total burned in one day. 8,270 on Ethereum was burned in one day. Super, super, it's such a great number, right? It's like 5.74 Ethereum every minute is being burned right now, right? So the supply in one day versus the deflation, it's like 0.5456% is getting ultrasound day by day. We are reaching there. We will soon be there, and eventually Ethereum will be deflationary, I think, right? Which is again a good value add for making an asset class like Ethereum. One more such awesome website which shows you a similar structure is the burn watch burn, right? It just shows that every transaction how much Ethereum is getting burned. People just watch this and they're getting happy every day. So in 1 hour, how much Ethereum was burned, right? 244 Ethereum at an average. In 1 month, right? What's the Ethereum that was burned, right? It's like, oh my God, such a big Ethereum. Rewards, net issuance. So it's like net reduction. It's like out of every 100 Ethereum, issued in the network, because of course it's an inflationary thing, right? For inflation, for supporting the miners, after out of every 100, 88 were burned, right? We are almost getting a point where we'll be totally deflationary and we might burn 110 and 100 are getting issued, right? So again, a great stats, and really happy that EIP 1559 is getting included. Naveen, closing thoughts, what do you think?
Yeah, I still need to get used to those things. As I mentioned, it's a good thing that burning, but is there any drawbacks of that? Since we are burning the Ethereums, so there's no limit for the Ethereum network, right? Because I know for Bitcoin it is 21 million, but
Right.
there's no upper limit for the Ethereum.
So it's like, there is a percentage that is, so for example, we have 100 Ethereum right now in the network, right? There is a percentage that is included every day, right? And why is that inflationary? Because the miners have to be paid for running the network.
Right,
How are they getting paid? Via this network inflation, right?
right.
So this is how it works. So like you can say that there is a net issuance and then there is a net burn, right? So right
Okay.
now we are at a state where it's like, for every 100 Ethereum that is issued, about 80 to 90 are getting burned. We are almost there already. With
Okay.
more
Okay.
adoption of Ethereum, there might be more burn and less issuance, right? So more FOMO incoming there. There is
Oh,
no upper cap, but there is always like, more transactions and more burn.
awesome. Now, so this looks cool. So EIP 1559 is finally, we have talked about it. So what's the plan for next trip, Pranav?
What we can do is like, we can run a poll or something, right, of topics,
Yeah.
and we are happy to discuss whatever people want to discuss. Although on the back of my mind, I would want to discuss layer twos, right? What is happening in layer twos, Ethereum ecosystem or something, or maybe we can
Okay.
discuss something like Solana, right? Another layer one. Like why just discuss Ethereum? We can discuss Solana, right?
Right.
And we
Maybe we can
can
also talk about Polygon, right?
we
So
can we can
how?
talk about Polygon, but again, that's in the layer 2 ecosystem, again, just Ethereum. But I'm happy to discuss about it. Also for Solana, we can bring any any of these super team DAO guys, right? And
Yeah.
have them in one of the things, and we ask them questions. So maybe it can be like, we can ask the crowd what they want, but it can be like we making people understand Solana in the first thing, and then taking an interview or something like Tanmay Bhatt or somebody who's in the Solana ecosystem, right?
Oh,
So
that
that would
works.
be
That works.
super cool. Yeah.
Awesome. So that was great. This week we have talked about EIP 1559, the proposal, and yeah, things looks good now. Now I understand what that means. Next week we'll do a poll. In fact, after this video, I will push a poll on the YouTube to know what is the next topic they want, and we'll discuss that. So thank you so much, Pranav. It was a great session. We wanted to have it for 45 minutes. Maybe after editing, it will go for 45 minutes. So see you there, everyone, next week. Maybe live or maybe recorded video, but we will be pushing a video. Bye bye, everyone. Thank you so much for joining.